Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. No real introduction, derivation, moving our theory forward, or our proof really. Again, I don't like the word theory, right? Theories, I don't even know what people mean by theory. Proof is here's an empirical physical process, here's the words to describe it. That's proof. And then we'll finish up with a story. So what are we doing? We're looking for our undeniable axiomatized definition of sensorality. A one-way definition of language, letters representing sounds that is unique, and that is novel. So what we've demonstrated is in this completeness, right? The fundamental theorem of linguistics is if you have a word, right, what is a word? It's an irreducible sequence of sound. If you can take a word and break it down and it not retain its empirical meaning, it's complete, right? Like if you take the word ball, ball is a word, all is a word. Then if you take off an L, AL, in the English language, right? A given language, English, Spanish, French, is consistent to itself, right? English is consistent to English. And so we've proved that languages are not distinct, but if you take the word ball, chop it down to all, that's still a complete word. Then you take the word all and shake it down to AL, like al or all. You know, it's not clear on the pronunciation, but it's not a complete word anymore. So that's what defines a word, is if it can't be reduced anymore and retain its same empirical meaning. And so what we can do there is we have some sort of, again, intuitive operation where if you have a complete word, you can remove it. And we showed that again with the if, normal, informal. You can pull out if and normal from that word, use each of the letters uniquely one time. And so now we're going to apply that to sensorality, right? It's clearly built on sorality, but we don't really know what that is, but we know what orality is. So we can take out oral. So if we just take out oral, sensorality minus oral equals sensity. Sensorality is sensity. Because remember, we're trying to root a word. Basically find its base roots where it can't be reduced anymore and where this word came from. And then how we related it to ethnicity, ethnicality last episode, but how it is already integrated into our diction right now today. And so somehow how we can formalize that process, but literally if you have a complete word with a clear empirical meaning, and then you take something else off of it, and there's immediately more clear examples. Again, whenever you're trying to think of them, and I don't write them down, I do this live derivation. Granted, it's a recorded video, but I do it off the top of my head to show you this is truly first principle. I'm just trying to think of another word, like table. Okay, I'm just looking. There's a pool table right off screen. That's why I keep saying table. But table. Then you break it down to able, right? But then if you now the pronunciation table, able, bull. Right? If I just said bull, you'd be like that would just be a sound. It wouldn't register as a complete word. And so you can very clearly see the syllability chopping, right? And then because you can also say like, you know, if you're in a bad situation and someone starts saying, right? You didn't say the F word yet, but you got close. People know what you're going to say, but you chop that off and it doesn't have that meaning anymore, right? If a 3-year-old went up to their parents and said, like stubbed their toe and said, and didn't actually say fuck, he would probably be in less trouble than if he actually said fuck. But the point being is if you chop off a certain amount of the word, it no longer retains that empirical meaning. People literally won't know what you're saying. That is the fundamental theorem of linguistics. That is what a word is. And so conversely, we can take this where we have completeness and we can subtract it, literally subtract it out of a word. So sensorality is sensity. And that gets back to the amalgamated versus integrated words, where the amalgamated words are clearly just like words literally just like stuffed together, very obvious in the German language. And then if and normal would be an integrated word into informal. We talked about that. What is the relationship between sensity and density, right? Clear physical process, sensity. Sense, sensation, sensationality, sensity. How does that relate to density? Your sensation, your ability to sense things, what is the relationship to density? But then you have intensity, density, intensity, you know, how much of something, how fast, insensity. So then we've intensity is well defined. Now insensity, we've just iterated that one letter, that T to the S. And right, we're going backwards, QRS, TUV, T to S, insensity. And we've already derived insense, like to anger somebody. Insensity is insensitive. Again, remember, that's a theorem right? I typically don't even return to the same theorems that I've proved in previous lectures. But now again, we're seeing that cycling of we're getting closer to the spiral. Because now we're back to insensity is insensitive, which was a new theorem about 3 weeks ago, and I just redrove it today. So again, we're getting to that, we can see the finalization coming. But we have, again, it's a negative natural definition, right? Insensity is insensitive. Insensitive is a word we've already used and know very well. And then insensity is we've kind of derived it or introduced it, but it's just iterating the letters. And they're both, again, starting with that negative prefix in. Speciality is insensitive. Again, that's something we've already derived here. How does timing relate to cyclicity, right? If my notebook stays right here and 10 seconds pass, I'm not going to wait the whole time, but has that been through a cycle, right? Its spatial coordinates did not change, but its timing changed. So every process is unique simply because time passes. And so you can have spatial equivalence, but the time is different. If I literally sit here right now and don't move, I'm still me, but time has passed, I've metabolized something, I've aged. And so timing makes all cycles unique. What is the relationship of entropy and pressure? I would say the more pressure you have, the less entropy you have. Because if I sit here and I literally have a bunch of gas molecules flying around and I increase the pressure by decreasing the volume and I put them into a tighter and tighter space, you're going to approach those percentages from the sphere packing density theorem. And so I would assume that entropy is inverse. The more pressure, the less entropy you have, because there's less available space, there's less volume. Ethnic and tropic. Ethnicality and tropicality. Speciality is entropicality, right? You're more chaotic and more rambunctious in your younger years. Sensorality limits entropy, right? So now we have a very clear physical definition. Entropy, energy that is not available for work, and sensorality limits that. Speciality makes when you go all crazy, and then now you want to settle down. Speciality is going crazy, sensorality is settling down. And so again, just building out our definition. But we have a very clear link now, limiting entropy. Sensorality is the thing that limits entropy in all physical contexts. Sensorality is obtuse, speciality is acute. Again, right, you have an obtuse triangle and an acute triangle. If you're obtuse, literally the dichotomistic pairing logically is retarded, right? If you're annoyingly slow, that's the Google definition. But if you're slow, you're retarded, not like a slang word or condescension towards somebody with a lower IQ. Literally the word retarded means, it's some relation to viscosity, to slowing flow. So acute is to brief or to transient, obtuse is to retarded. And then viscosity retards, right? I move slower than molasses in January. You're referencing temperature and something that's very sticky or flows very slow. So viscosity retards. Sorority, causticity. Caustic, causticity. Viscosity is also related to vicariosity, right? Vicarious, living through somebody. Right? You can feel and think through other people's logic. That's why you can learn from other people. That's what vicariosity is. A fraction is a facet, right? A facet is ace with F and T around it, right? So again, we have another demonstration of this, one of these numeric relationships of geometric linguistics, of basing, right? We have an elementality of 3, right? Our internal mass gap of our shadow has 3 iterations, that's Y. But a facet is a fraction, but facet is has base ace, which is the first 3, 1, 2, 3 of the English alphabet, and generally it's 3 elements. And so once again, getting back to something's going on there with the numeric relationships of the letters. Does information have mass? If I learn something, do I physically get heavier? Mass has shape. Shape is form. What is the relationship of shape and space? So remember, mass creates the space. We started with an initial energy density that stabilizes into mass. The energy that was not completely stabilized into mass, because no physical process is 100% efficient, it's sound, it's heat, it's not like our base is mass or something. And so energy is contained within mass, but like the relevant dynamic is mass, is matter, right? That's even why it's in religious ontology. You go to mass. You know, you're part of a bigger system. And again, 0% religious. It's just religion is a scientific ontology from a long time ago. That's what it is. But does information have mass? If I download something on my cell phone, does it physically weigh more? And I think so. It's related because information is energy. Remember last time we defined information is energy, and that's the big kind of consolidating thing. Mass is a form of energy. But now we have chronology, so mass is stabilized from energy. Mass contains energy. That's why you have a little grain of sand and it contains, a ton of energy, related by E equals mc squared. And right, energy has no shape. What is the shape of sound? You can model it as a frequency, as a sine wave, or as a cosine wave, but it doesn't physically, it's the result of objects moving, it doesn't have some shape itself. And so information does not have shape, so it cannot have mass. Remember, light does not have momentum. And so radiation does not have momentum. When I sit outside and I get warmer because of the sunlight, I'm getting warmer because the sun is vibrating, and that momentum is transmitted on the tension path to Earth, to me. What heats the Earth and the Earth heats me. But that's just a very direct question, which I have a lot of intuition to say both ways, and it's physical. I can be direct, like I said, I can be directly wrong. I'm doing this logically, and if I'm directly wrong, I'm directly wrong. It doesn't really affect, it'll just be a speed bump in terms of the actual derivation. But you have to go through all of this process, all of this question you always have to ask. You have to be able to answer, for complete proof, you have to be able to answer every question you ask. And so, but looking at, with our analytical tools we've developed in formation, right, it's not formed, so it doesn't have form, it doesn't have shape. So I would say energy does not have mass, it's related to mass, right? That's kind of what the infinite uniqueness is. Everything is different. That's why there's different words for different physical processes. It's not that light doesn't exist, it's just that radiation is the right term you use to complete a proof. But then we're at horseshoes and hand grenades logically, where it's if you say something, people are going to get what you mean if you're remotely close, because you have the same experiential basis. You're a human being, and if someone's wincing, you know what it's like to feel pain and why they're making that facial expression. So does information have mass? No. Mass is a form of information. True. Energy is not mass. Energy is related to mass. The speed of light, which is not a speed, there's no constants. The speed of light is the dynamic limit of R3. So no, information does not have mass. Sensorality is geniality, right? Species and genus. Speciality, geniality. Geniality is joviality. Jovial is positive. Joviality is cordiality. And now we have, again, joviality is cordiality. Jovial is cordial. You can't deny that. And the base of those words is vial, not like disgusting, but like a tube, and dial. What is dialing? Right? If I dial your phone number, what am I doing? Am I clicking numbers? What's the difference between dialing and clicking? Remember, we're differentiating basic physical processes, and we're just having a mountain avalanche of language and logical proofing to get to a simple physical proof. So what is dialing, and what is dialing in relation to clicking? But if you were dialing a phone number, are you counting? What are you doing when you're dialing? I just think of the old school phones. Psh, psh. More to that motion than to clicking numbers or pressing numbers, right? Okay, what words do you use for each action is now different, well, not different, but you're aware that it's more specific, right? When you have not applicable on an application somewhere to a job, right? There's words that are not applicable to all these different nuanced contexts. But because overall, again, if you say that the logic that's remotely close, people are going to get what you're saying. So the amount of proofing that is available here is truly infinite. But how does language relate to feeling? And again, if I ask these questions and don't answer them or don't return to them, it's because they're open questions. I am just establishing the base amount of logic I need to establish this axiom, sensorality. And it's instinctual. Like I'm drawn to it. Like I said, there's feelings to these things. And it feels physically wrong, not in like a moral way, but like if I try to put a key into a hole and it doesn't fit, it feels like that. Like there's a physical sensation of pressure of like, this word doesn't go here. Because again, words are a physical system. Language is a physical system. and physical consistency is real. But how does language relate to feeling? Right? That's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to relate my experience, my intuition to you and to myself. Remember, I'm an individual person. If you're literally sitting in a room with people, you're still sitting there in your mind, like by yourself. So you spend the vast majority of your existence alone. Not even necessarily physically, but mentally. And so the only thing you really can talk about is yourself. And so all of this relates on, because this is me, Brad, talking right here. It all relates back to me and my life experience. But experience is uniform. There might be some differences here and there. They might seem big, but we all have the same heartbeat. We're about the same size. We all have the same goals and aspirations. We're all part of the same society. And so language relates feeling to experience. Language expresses feeling. Pressure, expression, right? Speciality impresses, sensorality expresses. Expression is expedient. Express, extra. Sensorality expedites. Expedite, sensorite. Sensorite, sensorite, soritality. Sensorality is soritality. Sorality, soritality. What is the relationship between relevance and sentiment? What is the news? Like literally, what is relevant to you? Is the person, like I do a history section, is that really that relevant to my day-to-day? No, I just like to be kind of educated. Do I forget absolutely most of everything I read? Yes. Do you? Yes. Is there still value to going through that process of learning? Yes. But what goes on the news is what is relevant, right? And so like, how do we, the same way when you're learning languages, you have frequency dictionaries of how many words people use. It's related to how many experiences people have. There's not that many unique experiences. There just isn't. And so, what is news? Like, why do we call what we turn on the TV and there's a Joe talking or me talking here? Like, what is new? What is relevant? Right? Because that's what people remember is what is relevant. That's what the functional, again, life is random access memory. And so the things that we remember are relevant. And that's new or novelty in general, right? That's why it's called the news, because it's supposed to be new things. Another nuance, but because it's first principle science. Everybody's doing first principle science all of the time. But relevance, valence, right? You can see if you just relevance, the RE, if you just valence can be spelled with the LEVANCE, or again, it's clearly related, iterated. But valence and violence, right? Valence shell of your electrons on the outside. Violence is kind of like a fringe behavior on the outside. And so all of these different words of motion and emotion are all related and based on fundamental motion. Language describes movement. What a surprise. But that is it for today. Thank you for watching. Oh, and the Cal Berkeley math secretary story. So again, because I've given up, again, I make these lectures and I address different groups of people in these lectures. But if you're just watching this either now or today, or you're just your average Joe and you don't know who I am, like I said, it is my constitutional right for these discoveries to be published in a meaningful way. It's not optional. In a country, the United States of America, that was founded literally on no taxation without representation. In my language litigation integration series, I documented I don't have access to health care. I don't have access to my rights. And then I have health problems because of this direct thing of me begging to be treated like a human being, for me begging for people to uphold what they've said they're going to do. That is the Constitution, that is the law, and it's just completely voluntary. And so there was a period when I first discovered this, I was like, there's no way these people can and will, or not can, but will do this to me. And sure as fuck they did. And so, meaning I called, I gave out flyers, I emailed people, I offered money. I'm still offering $500,000 of notarized funds to everything I've ever made to do this. And I have personal debt. I can't get out of these things. I am the victim of crime. And so when you take away someone's right, every bit of taxation is extortion. Every bit of refusing to acknowledge my work is obstruction of justice. It is. And so my point being for the story is, to the people watching this, is like I've done, if you're sitting there saying, why is this guy talking on a camera? Why doesn't he go to a university? I am literally not allowed. Right? This intelligence agency has told academia that if they acknowledge my work in any capacity, and this intelligence group is integrated into all aspects of society, and if they acknowledge my work to any capacity, they will go to jail. which is hilarious because I am telling them that you're in direct sabotage of the educational structure, and the punishment for that is legal and lawful execution. And so it's like kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and surprisingly, you just pick the worst one. But my point is I've exhausted everything I could do in the quote-unquote right way, which is in heavy air quotes, makes me cringe saying it, because there is no fucking right or wrong in this world. There's just groups of people with authority, that being academia, that being law enforcement. And they're all made up of individuals, and those people are pathetic as fuck. Spooks and goofs. Either they already know who I am and they know exactly what I'm doing, they already watched this video before it's posted online, or they have no idea what I'm doing. And the people that know who I am are not going to do anything, and the people that don't know who I am have this ontological shock reaction where there's no chance they would do anything. And so I'm talking to it's a secretary at Cal Berkeley. I've been in direct contact with David Eisenbud for a decade now. I can show you videos of him going, "Oh, seeing mathematics at the highest level is mind-boggling. I love the math and all the other stuff, oh, I don't mind." Because I also talk to adult grown men like 120-year-olds, like I'm 120 years old, because age is just a number. And taking another man's life and his rights away is the most disgusting shit in the world. And then you can't, confrontation doesn't bother me. Being disrespected does not bother me. Not having the ability to respond is the most unnatural physical experience as a biological organism that could exist. And then they just throw on a label on you, mentally ill, which doesn't exist, scientific codified fraud, and then they just label you with a word and then just cast you out of society. Like, I've truly been scapegoated from everything. If you're watching this video, from literally I have no friends, nothing. I mean, like, my life was destroyed by a community of people. My life is like a public restroom. People walk in, shit all over the walls, leave, act like nothing happens, and then they still want to be treated like respectable people and not diabolical apes. And so my point is I went through a long process of trying to do anything I could to get these people to absolutely, like, real substantial money, protest, I mean, the whole 9 yards. And it's just a brick wall. And I know why, but I've hacked all of their shit, and I'm not going to show all of my cards until you guys admit to the entire group, the human species, that you fucked all of engineering for at least 60 years. And that's still not going to go away ever, and you guys are all fucked. But no one's going to listen to me, so I'm not going to show my cards until it's time. But I call Cal Berkeley, and I'm just like, "Hey, to the front desk, can I speak to a mathematician?" And she is like, "Your institution's committing fraud," which they are. And again, if you just say, "Hey, I have rights," right? The Constitution's there to protect you from other people doing illegal things. And so if I say I'm going to sue you for fraud, that's expression of my rights. That is in no way a threat to you personally or to your institution. It's simply saying the sky is blue because the sky is blue. And so I'm supposed to have these things called constitutional rights. That's the reason all of these Americans jerk off to this wonderful country that has no actual rights whatsoever. And she gets in there and she's like, and the first thing she says is like, "Well, you can email them and if they're in your field of interest." In my field of interest. What arrogance level are you guys at to hear a 32-year-old man call in and you assume that I'm a grad student? I unified physics before I went to preschool. I am the only mathematician actually doing real proofing. It's just me. This is the only level of proofing that is complete. It's not my fault you're fucking stupid. And so, just if anybody were to call in there, and the thing is, they just assume it's just some student trying to get into their great club. You have a legal obligation to acknowledge my work. You guys wanted to be the Cal Berkeley. You guys love to jerk off and say, "We're a leading institution." Well, if you're a leading institution, you have a special obligation, speciality, to acknowledge this work. There's only so many people that actually work on theoretical physics. Truly, there's fucking none. And there's certainly none making progress. Theoretical physics has been stonewalled for decades. Mathematicians can jerk themselves off and say they've made progress. But if your idea of mathematics is some little numeric calculation, or even something like the Riemann hypothesis, you're already functioning. All of the technology is already built on the mass gap existing. The Riemann hypothesis being true. P not equaling NP. Right? So it's it doesn't, engineering or a practical application, there's nothing different. And so it's so weird, right? It's like I'm proving all of these relationships in the direction everybody expected them to be proven. And then I just get such a vitriolic hatred response. And it's because you guys have put these problems on a pedestal. And science is really just natural discovery of the world around you. You destroyed science. Terence Tao, Edward Witten, Caltech, Harvard, Oxford, whoever. Peter Schultz in Germany. Whoever. If you think you're somebody in science and you are not talking about my work, you are the fucking problem. The janitor down at the local high school doesn't know shit about this work. You do. Academia and law law enforcement has the pinnacle of responsibility to disclose these things. But human beings are disgusting fucking failures. So I'm talking to the secretary, and she's like, well, you can reach out, into your field of interest. My field of interest is unified physics. I built an entire new math subject, and it's reduced and proven on the internet. They don't even understand 10 years. I can show you videos on my hard drive of, again, Andrew Ross Sorkin on CNBC. How does a random finance TV host know about my work? And then I call a math department and the secretary doesn't. Show me some fucking respect. If I've learned one thing in this world, it's that all of the people that were supposed to raise me didn't know dick about how to be decent to another person, how to have integrity or character, or just mind your own fucking business. And she's like, and then I can literally hear these people just like letting me talk. And she literally says, well, I'm just letting you vent. It's my constitutional right to publish my fucking discoveries, and they say I'm letting you vent. I'm not some emotional 14-year-old. I'm a grown-ass man that is being tortured to death publicly, literally. And nobody has the emotional development to care, because guess what human beings done in their whole lives? Compete. Like I said, let's compete. I will give you $500,000 right now, and I will solve all of those, the hardest, most important math problems to you in front of your face. If I say one syllable wrong, you can have $500,000. Oh, that's right, because it is right. But because of this stigma people have put on these problems, if you solve this problem, you're the next Gauss or Newton or whoever, then you're not allowed to solve them. It's just what a fucking disgusting, wretched pile of arrogance academia is. And I know, like I said, I was a student. I saw all of you little dorky, quirky weirdos you were so insecure because you're still people, but your big thing of identity was math or physics, and you're the smart one, and you're gonna go be educated. How about now? Those gifted kids out there, did you go solve all of science? Because remember, what you guys also don't realize is if you want to do a proof at this level, you have to go through all of this logic I've already demonstrated. Syllable by syllable. Good luck. And she starts telling me, she's like, well, I was like, well, are you a mathematician? She's like, no. I was like, well, that's why I asked, the first thing I asked is, are you a mathematician? Because you're not going to know what I'm saying if you don't know what the problems are. And again, obviously all of this stuff is redundant. I am just fucking these schools as much as I can. Everything's recorded, everything's documented, and as soon as I have one voice to listen, everything goes everywhere. I have backups everywhere, you guys are all destroyed. Because don't forget, in 2017, you guys weren't sure that this is a math proof. You guys don't even know what mathematics is. But she starts talking about how, she did her PhD on 1450s in Geneva, Italy, about the Medicis. Oh, like I'm not a historian too. And I was like, oh, pop on over to Brad's book club. We're studying Eastern Europe, right? Da Vinci would have been murdered and killed if it wasn't for Medici hiding him. And then I literally asked her, I was like, do you think there's any chance that there's scientific denial going on right now? And she literally shrieks. There's the ontological shock. Of course there's scientific denial going on right now. Lady, do you realize you're the one doing it? You're the one doing it. Right now, you have a chance to open your mouth and tell the truth, or go into history in shame and eternal disgrace, and not one person can be a decent human being. Truly, not one. And so obviously when I call them once or twice, every 6 months, I don't know. But it's disgusting. How does random TV Andrew Ross Sorkin, Joe Kernan, who's an absolute fucking cuck, or the CNBC team, how do they know? And then is there anybody out there that can treat me like a human being? I have been begging for years and years and years, and no one gives a fuck. This world is disgusting. Thank you for watching. Enjoy your free shit, and see you on the next one.